what's that all about? One of the main reasons I hear for internationals wanting to work in Denmark is the work-life balance. And before I jump into what it really is, something I also experience a lot of international couples, especially not thinking about, that I think it's important you take this into consideration before deciding to move here, is that Denmark is very much a two household income country. That means that you will most likely have to work both partners when you're living in Denmark. The living costs are high, the tax is high. Of course, there's lots of benefits in that, which is like free healthcare system, free education, all of these like different things that are super beneficial when living in Denmark. But it's just important to know, especially if you are living in Copenhagen, the capital city, or some of the other major cities, especially Copenhagen, that rent is expensive, like everything is kind of expensive, right? So it can be hard to, even for like highly educated people, it can be hard to live a family on one salary. So that's the negative part of it. So let's jump into what is this work-life balance? Why is it so interesting? And by the way, my name is Diana Lundström. I work with helping international academics with job search in Denmark. So if you're looking for someone to support you in your job search, not visas, not that kind of stuff, but figuring out how the Danish the Danish job market works, wow. Then reach out, book a discovery call with me. Okay, so here are how the Danish job market works in terms of the work-life balance. So a lot of the time, a normal work week is somewhere between 37 and 40 hours. This is very, very common, and it is when you work in anything government, usually you would have, depending on what kind of jobs, but most jobs will have like 37 and a half hours. And then that is including lunch and everything. And then when you work in the private sector, you're at 4 hours or 40 hours because their lunch is not included. So it's just like the 40 hours, give or take, is basically what a work week is. And then a lot of the time, if you have overtime, you're expected to take that off at another time. I'm not saying that this is everywhere, that all companies do this, but we have a lot of unions, we have a lot of like value around being respectful of that and of the work-life balance, of the family time, all of this. So usually you would have like, if for example there is something, okay, an example, I am going on next weekend or this coming weekend on Sunday, there is a what's that called? That's a good question. The MS Foundation in Denmark, they are having like a countrywide fundraising thing, and I'm gonna go out and fundraise for that. That's amazing, right? But I'm thinking that the people who actually work in the MS Foundation in Denmark, this is like the biggest event of the year, so they are probably super, super busy up to now, right? And maybe also in the beginning of next week because this is Sunday. So they will probably have more than 40 hours a week these couple of weeks. They will then most likely be expected to flex that time, meaning that they will then be able to take off a day or go home earlier or meet in later at other times because they had these extra hours at that point. And that actually leads me into the next time, which this means like overtime is really rare because we have this opportunity and because it's very planned out. Danes are extremely scheduled. We're really, really focused on our planning and like making things efficient in that sense. if you notice also, and this is especially if you're working at an academic level and especially in the, I guess, public sector, that week numbers, you will, you if you live in Denmark, it's a very, very good idea to know the week numbers, because like, oh yeah, we'll do that in week 42. Probably won't, because that's a vacation week. But knowing these like small things in terms of planning can be super important. And then talking about vacation, the norm in Denmark is actually that you have 5 weeks of paid vacation. And this does not include sick days. If you're sick, you're sick. That's like, that has nothing to do with your vacation days. Even if you, and I'm not quite um sure about the like how this worked in practice, because I've never had to use it, so I haven't really done it. But I think it's like, if you get sick like 3 days before you have to go on vacation or even use your vacation, let's say you have 3 weeks of summer vacation, that's like very common here. Then you get sick 3 days before and you're like sick for a week and a half. Then you can, as far as I know, you can actually use this vacation again. So you can kind of get compensated for this vacation again. Hi, PS5 lover. Nice to meet you. Um, so 5 weeks of vacation, and even in a lot of uh, places you also earn what's called vacation, extra vacation days, like five, you can earn 5 extra vacation days in a week. And vacation is actually something you also can negotiate in your pay. So let's say that you're like, well, I think my pay is enough, I would like to negotiate more free time, more vacation time. Or maybe even your company's like, we can't give you money, but we can give you an extra day off. That's something that also comes in. So 5 weeks of vacation. And when I compare, when I hear about stories from, for example, the US, which is what I hear a lot about, of course, then it's like they don't have anything near that. And they have to also take their vacation days is also coupled up with sick days, which is like, no, that's not a thing here. We also have um, if you have kids and your kid is sick, you can take the first sick day with your kid. And the idea here is that then you have time to figure out how to get your kid taken care of while the kid is sick. So, and some places you even have 2 days for that. And again, this doesn't go from your vacation days, this doesn't go from anything else. This is just an additional thing you can do. Um, so, yeah. And then we have parental leave, and you can get, this depends a little bit on the company as well. But as far, again, I don't have kids, so I've not had, I didn't need to kind of know this. So you can get, I think it's a year worth of parental leave. And as far as I know now, 3 months, this is combined between the parents per kid, I think. So the first, or the guy has 3 months, and then the mother or the father, and the mother has the rest. But it's also something about that you can only get, depending on your company, salary in 6 months of that. Then you go to government payments. There's a whole lot of payment stuff here that but this is something that you can definitely research, because again, this is amazing, right? To have like this potential like 9 months to be at home with your kid while they're newborn, and having them like getting to really know them before you have to go back. Hi, Harry. So yeah, so parental leave also super nice thing in the work-life balance part here. Then there's also flexibility. So in general, if your kid, your whatever, has to go to the hospital or the doctor's office or the dentist or whatever, you would have, again, I'm talking about academic job. This doesn't quite work as well if you work in a store and like they are uh, dependent on you being there at a specific time. Whereas when you have knowledge workers, it's a bit easier to kind of leave your job and just do it at another time. So a lot of the time you would have flexible work in a way where you can leave to go to that doctor's appointment, as long as you get your work done and you just put those hours in at a different time. The same if you have small kids, like you might want to come in later, a bit later, because you have to drop off your kid at a kindergarten or something, and then you might want to leave earlier as well because you want to pick them up and spend time with them, and then you work a few hours in the evening instead. That is okay with a lot of companies. I use it a bit differently when um when I've been working in a company. I like to get up early in the morning, so I would usually get there at 7 and leave at 3:30, depending on uh, the company and where it was, right? If it was a possibility, because that fits my lifestyle better, right? So there's this huge amount of flexibility that makes a lot of sense. Hi, Yasna. I hope that's pronounced correctly. And then the whole thing about this flexibility also leads into the high level of trust we have. Denmark is a very, very trust based culture, where if I say I'm going to do something, then I'm going to do something, right? And that's people trust that you do that. And there's not like, if you have an assignment and that you've been given that, then you're trusted. There's no one that's going to stand there and look over your shoulder and make sure and micromanage you, most of the time at least, um, because we trust that you're going to get that thing done, right? So if, let's say that we have a project and you have to do the first part, and we have a date that you are to deliver to me, and then I'm going to do the next part, then I'm not going to be asking you along the way, hey, how far are you, how are things going, blah blah blah. You can always come to me and ask stuff, but I'm not going to like be down your like throat or anything with it, because I trust that you're going to be ready to hand that project over to me on the date that we decided. So in general, in Denmark, this is not just work related, but in general, we have a high trust culture. That also means you'll see me sitting working at a cafe, and I have to go buy a new coffee or use the restroom or something, and I'm going to look at the guy or girl sitting at the table next to me also working on their computer. I'm just going to say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to, can you look after my stuff for a few minutes while I just go blah blah. And yeah, sure, and I will trust them to look after my things, right? So that's a very, very high trust culture. Then we also have, and I'm going to butcher this because I can never figure out how to pronounce this, but we have a flat hierarchy. Ooh, I think that went very well. In general, in companies, we have a very flat hierarchy, meaning that um, everybody can kind of talk to everybody. When I was working with Job Index back in 17, 18, 19, around that time. By the way, if you don't know what Job Index is, it's one of Denmark's biggest job sites. You should go into it, jobindex.dk, and look for jobs. But when I worked there, the founder and CEO of Job Index, he very often sat and ate lunch with us. And he would just come to whatever table and wherever and sit down and eat lunch. And everybody is like on a first name basis. You would call, there's no like Mr. and Mrs. or yes sir or yes ma'am. We're on a first name basis. This is something that I know is very, very hard for a lot of people when applying for jobs in Denmark, for example, because when you address people also in emails, it's like I I cringe if I get an email where it's like, dear ma'am. I'm like, I'm not a ma'am. I'm like, I know I'm not young, but I'm also not a freaking ma'am. But it's just also we don't use it, right? So I would expect an email or message to be, hi Diana. I wouldn't even use dear, um, because that's just, yeah, not how, that depends. That's a personal thing. Um, so flat hierarchy, that also means that even the boss are usually open to ideas and to like for you saying what you mean, and if you have questions and stuff like that, it's okay to actually say, hey, that sounds great, could this maybe though be a better idea, or I thought about this. And you're actually expected to speak up. We would rather have you speak up about potential flaws or things in the projects in the beginning or during, instead of like getting to the end and figuring out, oh, there's a problem here, and you were just sitting there knowing it all the time but didn't dare to speak up. No, no. In Denmark, the trust part of this, but also the flat hierarchy means that we say stuff like that. We let the people know that this is what it is, right? There's something here. And it's even expected of you that you would actually um, speak up if you see something or if you have a better idea or stuff like that. Um, we also work very efficiently, and that I think that comes to the same thing that I've been through a little bit already. That because we have less hours to work in, the efficiency part is important. Um, so yeah, I think that's just what I want to say about that. But we like when you're working, you're then working, but it's also you can also like chat with coworkers during breaks and stuff like that. But as long as you get things done, then everything is good, right? You don't have to like um fill out your hours with stupid things. So when you're done with your tasks, if you have, depending on what agreement you have with your workplace, right? Some workplaces will say, that's fine. Like you're here, you're basically here for 37 hours. But if you get your stuff done in 30 hours, we don't care what you do with the last 7 hours. Other companies will be like, well, when you're done with your tasks, then please let us know and we can give you more tasks kind of stuff. So it kind of depends, right? But this is something to I very much encourage you to get clear on beforehand so you don't end up like getting or stepping on someone's toes by not doing anything when you should have been doing something. And then the last thing that I think is important with the work-life balance is also and there's probably more by the way, but this is just the ones I had for today. But that is like the social work outside of work, or the social life, sorry, outside of work, that you're like um have a lot of clubs and activities and stuff happening outside work. And this is not just the kids, it's also grown-ups. Like they will go for uh, weekly dancing or knitting clubs or practice football themselves or anything, right? So there's a huge social life that is expected. You'll see, for example, every first Sunday of the month, I have a net walk in Copenhagen. That was yesterday. It was really great. I got a little bit sunburned. But it was very nice weather, even though we're in September, right? And the parks, like going out and sitting in the parks and barbecuing, or maybe not barbecuing because you're not allowed to do that, but eating, like drinking wine and like, or to the beaches or stuff like that, just like doing things together outside of work as well is with friends is super important. Um, but you have a better living. Better than what? But yes, we have a fairly good level of living. Denmark is the happiest country in the world. I don't think that's true anymore, actually. I think that the past couple of years, Finland has surpassed us in that. Hi from Singapore. We often work 10 to 12 hours a day, and I hate it. Well, I would say there's two things to this because, yes, that sucks, but there's also like one thing is the amount of hours you work, and the other thing is what you do, right? So I hope that, yeah, I think we're still number two. So I think it's not. I'm not complaining or anything. I just think there's this rivalry on that part. But in terms of the whole like working a lot of hours, um, I think that's all. I think it's doable if you really like what you do. But that's the whole thing as well with work-life balance. Um, and really, I think the mindset in Denmark is that you work with stuff that you like to do. You don't just work with anything. You actually look for jobs that you think would be interesting um, to to work with, right? So it's not just any job. It's a job you really like to be doing. And I hope that would make a difference, even if you did have long work hours. Um, Talk to us about migration. No, I cannot do that because I don't know anything about it. I don't want to. Um, so I don't want to. So I don't want to say anything about this. What I can say is there's a website called workindenmark.dk that you can go into and have a look at. So I would very much encourage you to do that. And that is not because I don't want to help you with visa, migration, all of that. But I don't know enough about it. I do know that about 20% of Copenhagen population and 14% of the total Danish population is internationals in one sense or another. So, yeah. I need to run now. I just want to say before I do that tomorrow's theme is going to be the importance of knowing Danish when you are looking for a job in Denmark. So even if you're not in country yet, that can be really important. And then let's see, it's gonna be around the same time. Hopefully, maybe I'll change it up. I never know, but I'm gonna aim for it to be around 4 p.m., which it is when I started today as well. So thank you so much for watching. I love the comments. I love the questions. Please keep them coming. Also, if you're not watching live, ask your questions. I'll do whatever I can to answer them. So take care. Bye.